First of all, you need come our challenge, so I'll say GH Politics Avenue. On your podcast or secretary because making headlines. Near Jemre, na EDB Exumo, need them near Roximo, Meshok say uncle political house. Now, Onia Awa Mohammed, a NPP ni on one cassa was saying a NPP, and you couldn't at only any assem koto akra, and Nina said, or can't say, I'm running NPP, and you couldn't a war akunya suono. Omo award contract ama companies makon 28 say omo emphasis GRIDCO. Na company ba kwa ye friend say eye Blue Ways. The dwuma okudi ye na onua na nya asem koto akra. Su chemicals bi anse se we use ema essence fidie na enya asem koto akra. Na onua ye monwura mu ne hwe ne ekọ ne de ba bra wo wura na gemre na obo yinchiremu wo san kwan wesi so ha AGH Politics Avenue.
What a Ghanaian want is to see his lights on because he's paying enough to see the light on. And again, we do not have generation problem. What we have is how the government is able to manage the sector by trying to buy crude and gas to be able to do that. You remember last year in August, a member of the Energy Committee in Parliament, member of Parliament for Oforokrom, raised a red flag and said that when Ghana Gas were doing their routine maintenance, they gave 28 companies opportunity to really do that work. It gave them the contracts to do the work. There is a company called Blue Wave. They gave them a contract to really service one of the machines. They destroyed it because they use a chemical that is not really suitable to be used.
Let's not make claims that we're not able to.
No, you see, I'm saying that
right now.
When he said that, they said it was speculative. 3 weeks ago, both GRIDCO, Ghana Gas, and VRA came with a joint statement to say that that particular thing has been destroyed and they had to replace it. Right. So they were not also doing up to the capacity they were supposed to do. You understand? So there are incompetent issues around what is happening today. And that is the reason we're calling on the government. You took us 1 cedi for the purpose of buying crude and so on. And now independent checks by media houses are saying that you're not buying the crude. So come and render accounts and tell us. Because you see, when that law was being passed, they told us that even though by law, it's after a year that you do the rendering of the account. But they told us that that money will not even go into the consolidated account. They will separate it, and after every 4 months, they will give us updates. And we've been paying this for the last how many months? 8 months. We do not know the update. And again, when you take the data from MPA and the amount of really fuel that we have consumed within this period, we're expecting around 7 billion Ghana cedi. So the 7 billion Ghana cedi, where did it go? So that is the problem. Even in 2015, 2014, 2013, when Dubso was at its apogee, even at that time, there were explanations. So Ghanaians don't need any explanation.
They want action now.
It's our light so that we'll be able to really plan well, plan our lives well. So that those who use electricity to also work will be able to. How? Someone who lives in Tema will come to his cold store in maybe, or his shop in Accra. And if he knows that indeed the place will go off, he will not even buy fuel and get to Accra and come and sit idle. He will live there. That's why we are calling.
But it's all soft now, is it?
Well, we do not know whether it is soft until maybe about after.
You don't believe the president when he would?
It is not the president because you see, look at the charade that happened when someone who
the energy minister says
someone who is supposed to go on retirement on the 27th of April. Then, just within days for his retirement, you say he's a step aside.
Okay, I'll come back to that.
When you are supposed to step aside,
let's do with the technical ones first. I'll come back to you on people stepping aside. Lom, tell us about. Is he right though by saying, well, this is much more a fuel issue?
Well, fuel obviously has an impact, but it's not the major thing. As Awal said, there are many dimensions to the energy sector, and particularly this one, I think that the terms we are using are a bit, if I should say, all over the place.
Right.
Because typically when we are talking about doom, so we are talking about where you have a situation where there's a significant deficit, and because of that, you need to have a timetable, a program to cover the deficit so that people are aware. Well, if there's no timetable in that circumstance, then we are talking about a situation where, let's say, the state institutions or government and so on are not delivering on the mandate. But you see that from the various comments that we've been looking at, even from, let's say, January to date, it's more about challenges in specific areas. So, for example, where I live in East Legon Hills, don't have lights going off as much. But I know people who, for example, in other parts of Adenta, is an Adenta constituency, where, for example, they are around maybe the ARS side or Obujo side, who say, my lights go off literally every day. So there's a challenge as to location as well as, some let's say...
So it's uneven?
Yes, uneven. It's uneven, yes, because some areas seem to have greater challenges in terms of having their lights being off and so on. So that is one of the key things. And when it is localized, you know that it is not from the grid, because GRIDCO, in charge of the grid, if they have a challenge, it has a wider impact. So, for example, the Akosombo issue with this fire, you see that significant portions of the country were off because that is a grid issue, that national grid issue. But when it is localized, it means that it is a distribution issue. So ECG within its enclave may have some challenges elsewhere. Now we know that the conversation around that has been about how to solve those localized problems by doing a transformer upgrade. So, well, that's a technical solution, and I believe that all those areas where they're having those issues is because the transformers are tripping. There's no reason why when generating companies are supplying power, that your area should be going off frequently. The only reason will be because your transformers are tripping because there's either overload or maybe there's an issue with the transformer and so on. And your area repeatedly going off means that you have a challenge there. So it has to be dealt with, which I understand ECG is saying they are dealing with. So that is on the localized side of things. But as I well said, and I'm agreeing in terms of this generally, because the Ghana energy sector has a significant financial dimension. And you see that even, for example, in the last budget, which was read last year, before the end of the year, you see that a lot of, we got a lot of information about IPP payments, renegotiation of IPP power purchase agreements with ECG, paying of, sovereign insurance guarantees to ensure that there's power and so on. There's a huge financial dimension to it. It's about payments of money and so on. And we already have a legacy debt situation as well. So it is also the case that so long as the financial aspects are having challenges, there will also be issues with the power sector, which as we stand today, we are better off in terms of payments than before. The reason is because, let's say, for example, the cash waterfall mechanism today is operating better than it used to in the past, which means that the various stakeholders in the power sector are getting paid better than they were paid.
But Awal disagrees on that score.
On the cash waterfall, I don't think Awal would decide. No, he would not decide. No, that was
No, but you said the sentiment of the minorities, isn't it?
Yes, he talked about money.
So that's why,
And I think Awal's point is more about the D-levy and accountability for that. But generally, in terms of payments in the energy sector, there's better payments today than in the past, as far as the cash waterfall is concerned. The cash waterfall, which I'm sure you know, and perhaps many Ghanaians also aware of this, is essentially the framework or mechanism that allows for the monies collected by ECG to be equitably paid to the various stakeholders. You recall that, for example, when this current government took office, there was a report or audit that was done by PwC of ECG. You recall that there was let's say an outcome or a finding that there were over 80 something bank accounts for ECG. You recall? I don't know if you recall, yes. Which
that was a smart way of avoiding the whole automated payment.
And yes, and not only that, it means that there was a very fragmented way in which their monies or revenue was being handled. Whereas
but the former ECG manager says, well, it was part of the plan, just to
yes, of course,
try and still find some liquidity to work with.
Yes, that's my mate. I know, but the idea is that, and I will also alluded to this. It is ECG that is the significant collector in the country. So if there's a challenge with collection, it will impact directly on all these financial dimensions I've talked about. But not only that, when you have several accounts, what it means is that there may be lack of visibility on some of the things that essentially, or let's say some of the revenue that comes into ECG for purposes of paying the various players. So what the mechanism does is to centralize, all collections come into a centralized account and all the stakeholders get a fair share rather than it be at the discretion of ECG. So as we sit here today, in terms of the cash waterfall, there's better payments, and IPP debts also have reduced significantly as we know from the last budget, and also the renegotiation of the power purchase agreements with various IPPs to make for better payment terms and so on. So you will see that, for example, in the last year, we haven't had major threat by IPPs that will shut down, something that we also used to experience. So I would say that as we discuss this issue of doomsaw, doom CAC or whatever, it is not a widespread rolling blackouts. Like
really? So are we out of the woods then? Is doomsaw over?
Well, as far as the Akosombo situation is concerned, I think that the 4 out of the 6 port lines are back. That's a significant addition. But of course, it's not all of it because we still have 2 to go. The solution that GRIDCO...
But the energy minister tells us that everyone... No, all of them are back on stream, isn't it?
That's what he said.
Now,
that's what he says.
Since yesterday. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So yes, it means that to a significant extent we are back to where we were before the fire.
Back to normalcy or back to?
Back to normalcy, because as I'm saying, before the fire that occurred in Akosombo, issues about not having power were localized. It wasn't a widespread situation.
It was in the Ashanti region, to the extent that the ECG boss had to go and even apologize. That was last month.
Yes, but
indeed, there were a lot of challenges with the Ashanti region.
No. So you see, Ashanti region has had a peculiar problem. So the way in which power is consumed has an impact on how you do, let's say, your design, your plan, and so on. So in Ghana, the fact is that it is Greater Accra and Ashanti region that are your biggest consumers. Right. So you recall a couple of years ago, Ameri was moved to Kumasi. Yeah. Why? Because technically it's good if the generation is closer to the center of consumption. Not only that, we also have the AXA plant, new AXA plant that is also being built in Kumasi now. It's the reason why the Gensa project to take gas directly from the south to Ashanti region is being done. Not only that, even currently, I know that there are plans to increase generation capacity in Kumasi because consumption is in Greater Accra significantly and Ashanti region. So you take generation closer. Yeah. Historically, Ghana, almost all our generation has been in the southern part of the country. So apart from Agosobo and Kwon in the Volta side, essentially all our plants are in Tema and Abuazi. You see, so the Kumasi has a peculiar problem because since it's a significant load center, you have to invest more in generation there, which is why now we have 2 power plants there, but it's not adequate. Still, additional investments have to be done. So we might continue to have Ashanti region specific issues until that has been permanently dealt with. Yes, because that's a technical thing. You need to invest more in generating plants there. And the reason why, as historically we've had our plants on the coast is because they are closer to where the ports are. If you have to import gas before, now we have our own gas, associated gas with our Jubilee field, and so on and so forth. So now we have let's say, Ghana gas supplying those plants along the coast. And then, of course, we have Nigeria also through. So, but that's the whole point. Ashanti region needs more investments as far as generation is concerned, to reduce the
and as you can see, joining us this morning, Hamza Suini, he's a member of the NDC's National Communications team. We have Solomon Owusu, Communications Director, United Party Plus.
Where's it?
NDC.
Hey.
3 or 2. It's scandalous.
Never in your life. Never in your life.
I won't dream about it.
Don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can add annex to him. You want to add what? Annex. NDC annex.
Can we just deal with Doomsday now? So we'll do the needful. I don't want trouble this morning. So let me start off because
these are your copies, man.
I know.
Free of charge.
Yeah. By the way, it's a book written by Lom.
Yes.
It's on. I love it. It's on Ghana's energy sector.
When I opened,
that's
good. Yeah,
I
read something that I have never really dreamt of. The Senate. I didn't know it belongs to Senate.
Yeah.
But I saw it here. Oh, that's good.
So you have a new book.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Hamza, here we are.
Yes.
Awal says it's a leadership problem. So the deficit we're having in the Ashanti region, let's spin it on the leadership.
Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues in the studio, and of course my own senior, Lom, and of our cherished viewers as well, and those who have joined us in the studios today. You see, I have always argued that when it comes to the energy sector, we have allowed the NPP so many years of latitude to continue to box in their own created bubble of deception in terms of the commitments they have demonstrated as far as the sector is concerned. And that has been the problem, even if you take into account the current outages. First of all, when this government assumed office, we were quite candid to the good people of this country, even if you participated in the National Economic Dialogue Forum that was organized. One of the towering challenges government kept on hammering on had to do with the failure of investments in the energy sector and the crippling debt that threatened the viability of that sector from day one. We did not hide that from the good people of this country. Indeed, even in the president's first State of the Nation address, he alluded to the crippling debt crisis that apparently was challenging the sector. And we did so not just because of what we came to meet, but because of the investments we know we championed between 2014, 2015, and 2016, when we had a major power crisis in this country. That was occasioned not because of the John Dramani Mahama-led administration, but because of our years of failure to invest in that sector collectively. Right. Now, His Excellency decided to accept that responsibility and drove investments in the sector that led to plans like Ameri, that in the run-up to the 2024 election, they had to quickly move to Kumasi to prevent an embarrassment. And I heard him make...
Oh, that's what they were doing?
Of course. Without Ameri, Kumasi would have gone through the whole of 2024 with intense power outages. But thanks to the investment architecture that was built under the NDC regime, they were able to rely on that. Now, you see, to the current outages, unlike them, despite the challenges we enumerated upon assumption of office, we accepted responsibility and we moved swiftly into action. Apart from the generation capacity that we drove, we also ensured financial sustainability and viability in the sector through the introduction of ESLA. So one aspect of it had to do with generation, another had to do with ESLA in terms of the financial support for the sector. Progressive thinking by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama at that time. Upon assumption of office, these guys, apart from their failure to invest in generation, they also depleted and abused proceeds that were meant to come in from ESLA to deal with the financial challenges.
Abuse, you say?
Of course, they did. Remember that they collateralized it, ESLA, and got an excess of about 10 billion Ghana cedis, and only succeeded in using less than 4 billion or so to pay BDCs. Where did the rest of the 6 billion go? And it has been collateralized for 30 good years. And we raise these red flags. And when you speak with them, they say, oh, for 8 years,
we ain't sama hodwa itim course watch na so mama na waso jemre da se ne so ba de dia dum bi Romania onia ye be san Asia